Welcome back to Perspectives with Jeremiah Stephenson. Today I have a wonderful guest, Miss Leah Garrett. She is a marketing coordinator and a volunteer for mental health advice on Instagram. Do they also have a main website?
Yes, it's a Tumblr.
Oh, they have a Tumblr.
Yes.
Ooh, Tumblr. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. Leah happens to also be my girlfriend, or rather, I'm her boyfriend, or we're each other's significant other. How you look at it doesn't matter. I had some options to bring some people into the show, but she reminded me that this is actually
Minority Mental Health Month.
Minority Mental Health Month. And I was like, ooh, you're a minority and you also help with mental health. Let's talk to you. I think that'd be pretty interesting. So welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's your story?
Ooh, I love that question. Because it was actually something that my grandbae, Emily Claire Christian, asked me as soon as I became her grand little. And we were in her Honda CRV, like an old school one, like 2004 or something like that. And she asked me the question of, what's your story, kid? And I literally like freaked out and I was like, I don't know. But it's like one of my favorite things to like ask people on Bumble and stuff like that now. So I guess my story is that I was born in Washington, D.C. And mental health has always kind of been something really close and special to my heart. Because at the age of 6, I became a sexual assault survivor. And that kind of changed my perspective at a very early age of what mental health was, why it was important, even if I didn't really realize that I was going to go on a path down mental health. I knew of its importance then, after everything had happened to me with my traumatic event. And I definitely, realized that it was something I wanted to become a part of. So around age like 11 or 12, 13, I became a child of the internet. I was a child on the internet before, but at a very young age. But I became more of a child of the internet around my teenage years, as you would like to say, Jeremiah. Yeah. And Tumblr was my thing, and I found mentalhealthadvice.tumblr.com, and they had been around for a little bit, but they were doing this incredible like job of helping, of what they literally, their tagline is like survivors helping survivors. And I would go to them with so many different questions about like my own mental health, and they would respond in like the most like anonymous manner, if like you needed it to be, or if you wanted it to be like public, you could have it be public. Like they're just a really good resource to have as a teenager. And at the age of 15, I landed my first internship through the American Advertising Federation back in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina, because I moved from Washington, D.C. to South Carolina. Okay. And basically, after getting that internship, I realized that I really enjoyed marketing, and it was something I was really creative about. But I didn't know how to put it with mental health at the time. Until I got into college, and after holding like another internship then and like kind of working my way out through different student organizations, I realized the summer of 2016, summer 2016, that I wanted to be a part of something bigger. And that was actually applying to be a part of MHA and seeing if I could actually become a part of it. And so I applied to become an admin, which is just simply doing exactly what I was like saying before, which is the other person on the other end answering people's questions like I had when I was a teenager. And I got accepted. And I was really surprised and impressed, and I was like taken in with open arms of this like international community from around the world. And that was like my first time interacting with people from all different kinds of worlds, literally, from across the like United States, Europe, and even like beyond, which is like really incredible to me. Besides like playing like RuneScape. Yeah.
Were you a huge RuneScape player growing up?
Yes, I was.
At what level did you attain?
I think I got to like level 90.
Oh, dang. Nice.
Yeah.
I played Tibia for a little bit. Tibia was like another overhead RPG that came out at the same time, I believe. I'm not too... Anyways, yeah. But, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. How many admins do they have on MHA?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I'm not sure if I could like look at our Facebook and like group and like tell you. I could like right now, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. I know it's like more than like 10 of us.
Okay.
I think it may be like 20 of us.
Okay. And you filter everyone's questions that come in out of the 20 of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what we have is an inbox, like a regular inbox, like Tumblr has, like the regular Tumblr inbox. And we have like a spreadsheet that we use to like basically go through and make sure that we're answering all the different type of asks in a timely manner. Even though it does get backlogged, like I think right now we're still on like asks from like earlier this year, because like we have over like 20,000 people who follow us. Yeah, it's a lot. And it gets really overwhelming. That box gets extremely overwhelming. And even though we do have like 20 admins at a time, it, like I said, the work gets very overwhelming.
Yeah, so just the subject matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The subject matter itself is like really like heinous and like really troubling and really can be like just like a lot of stress on like one person if they're like looking at it on a regular basis. And what a lot of us do, we'll sit down and like have like ask parties is what we call them, where we just kind of log in together at a certain time, like we did one this past 4th of July. Okay. And just basically sit around and answer asks for like long periods of time. Okay. But like I said, that gets draining, extremely draining. And if you're just looking at that all day and you're not really taking care of yourself, but you're taking care of other people, you kind of have to sit out time, unfortunately, to be able to go take care of yourself as well.
Yeah. What does that look like on a daily basis? How often do you all kind of schedule like, so 5 of us are going to come in like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then another 5 are going to come in, Tuesday, Wednesday. How does that work? Is it kind of, do you rotate that?
Actually, we don't rotate it. It's whoever has time to be on mostly. And because of that, we're trying to get better at like scheduling times and whatnot, and kind of like getting everybody more back involved and whatnot. But we unfortunately live lives like everybody else does too. And we have personal things that go on as well that sometimes keep us from being able to do our active duty as admins. Like for me, I know like I like just like, I just graduated and everything. And so
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And I don't know, it was like I had to go look for a job. I had to be a big girl. That was like my first priority. And they understood that. But like it just sometimes, you gotta go back and focus on your real life.
How did your trauma affect you growing up and like throughout high school and things like that, if you'd like to get into that?
So I would say I was, and I won't lie about it, I was a pretty angry child. I had a lot of resentment. I had a lot of anger and pent-up anxiety because what at the time I didn't realize was anxiety and depression and like rage and stuff of that nature about the traumatic situation, because I didn't know who to blame. And I didn't know that at a young age that it was okay to seek forgiveness from my abuser. And to seek forgiveness from the person whose care I was in that night when it happened. And to seek forgiveness from all of those involved who I feel as though didn't do anything for me. And I feel as though even if you're a young person, and it's something that I try to get across to a lot of survivors on MHA whenever I have the chance, is you should be looking for that forgiveness as soon as possible, as soon as that event happens to you. Because I think the sooner you find that forgiveness, the sooner you're able to come and find forgiveness within yourself for what happened. And I feel as though finding forgiveness is just something that I didn't find until my college years, unfortunately. Yeah. And so I didn't fully develop as a person completely until like literally a few years ago when I came to terms with my trauma. And around like summer 2016, when I like literally became an admin and was like, okay, this is something that I can go and help other people by using my story to be able to help them. Yeah.
So how did you get to that point of forgiveness? Were there things that built up to that? What was that process like? Once you realized I need to forgive my abuser, what was that story?
So I would say being able to find forgiveness in my abuser, I found forgiveness first and foremost, not towards my abuser, but towards the person towards like the other two kids who were with me during that traumatic situation and who were also sexually assaulted at that time. Because they knew, unfortunately, that person. And I didn't, and I felt like I was like trapped, and I got like kind of like locked into that situation like randomly. But I found forgiveness first, and I talk about this like in my gender memoir that I wrote this past semester for my gender and sexuality class. That I found forgiveness at the age of 16 on my bathroom floor after I called a sexual assault hotline. And I was like, is this sexual assault even if it's like another like 8-year-old boy doing this to you at like an early age and you're just like 6. And once I got confirmation of that and I realized like it was okay that had happened to me, and that I could find forgiveness for that 8-year-old boy having had done that to me, I realized that I could find forgiveness in the larger abuser. And again, that person whose care I was in that night that it happened. So I would say it started, like I said, 16 years old on the bathroom floor back in South Carolina.
So at what point, once you got to that place of forgiveness, how did you see your life change? In what ways did forgiveness set you free? If so, how, and what did that look like?
Forgiveness set me free in being able to find love from people I wasn't usually expecting love from, and being able to accept that love, like my sorority sisters, my friends, and forming those type of relationships with other people. And then on a deeper level, when it came to forming like a relationship like with like a guy like you, like Jeremiah, he's like cheesing right now. It's like, great, guys. So proud. I don't know. I found freedom being able to reclaim lots of things, and from being able to reclaim my independence, it feels like, to like going and doing things alone and finding freedom in that, like going to Music Midtown alone or like going to Drake's concert alone, to just being able to find like reclaiming my sexuality and finding like freedom in that. So I've been able to find lots of different ways to find freedom and love and acceptance after I found forgiveness.
Nice. Who are you now? Who is Leah Garrett? Who is the woman that she's grown into be?
So I would say that the person that I am today kind of comes down to like 5 little traits. And that's like one of my favorite questions to like ask people is like, what are your 5 like top traits about you? So I would say for me, it would be that I'm a creative, awkward, quiet, quirky, and active listener. I know that's not a trait, but like I need to just like, I don't know, I have to include that in there somewhere. I'm not sure what the word is, but I'm a really great listener.
That's something I'm working on right now.
Yes,
with you
are.
Is being a better active listener and hearing you for what you say and not just being like, oh, she said a thing, I shouldn't take notes. Like, oh no, she's sharing something that maybe a little bit deeper. That's been really cool to learn about myself, because as much as I think I listen, it was brought up to our attention, like I can do better. I can do better at that. So that's been a learning staple. What was your college experience like? How was college for you?
Oh my gosh. College. I miss college. My college experience was a very unique and wild ride. Mm-hmm. If I could do it all over again, I would totally go back and do it all over again and make some like different decisions, starting one with my major. Okay. Because I was a politics major. Mm-hmm. And I did not think that I wanted to necessarily be a communications major at the time. Even though like marketing was like the first internship I got, like I just said like a few minutes ago. But I realized that politics was something that I could learn and basically take charge of being able to market myself later on down the road in a unique fashion and statement. So that was like one thing about my college experience that was very unique, being a politics major instead of communications, and then like coming back out and like being like, I want to go into marketing. Mm-hmm. But another unique part of my college experience is that I was a part of a sorority. Hey. Yeah. I am officially an alumni of Chi Omega. I was a part of the Delta Theta chapter. Shout out to them here in Atlanta at Oglethorpe University. Woo-woo. Yeah. They are a group of amazing girls who taught me that even though I was very soft-spoken, mm-hmm. that they loved my soft-spokenness, as Kelly Hanley would say, because of me being able to just like calm people down with my voice and sounding very therapeutic, mm-hmm. almost. Mm-hmm. But they grew me into a group of like with a group of women that, ranging from my pledge class to the girls I just graduated with this past semester, and took my like senior photos with, that they always had my back and they always were there making sure that I was accomplishing something or doing something with my goals, which I really appreciate.
Nice. Do you have kind of goals for like what's next for you? I know you just got your first job.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you kind of have a goal at some point to get back into politics? Because that is your primary major. Do you want to move fully into marketing? What does that kind of look like for you right now?
So I would like to possibly go back into politics and do something with that, possibly help with a campaign or help do like some government reform for like issues that are really important to me, mm-hmm. and like marketing that or something like that. Or I'm not really sure if I want to just like dive completely into marketing yet, mm-hmm. and like actually do like agency work or like work for a nonprofit and do their marketing. Yeah, I'm still kind of like feeling it out.
You're young, you have time.
I know I'm young.
There's a million things you can do.
Your favorite quote? Mm-hmm. I said your favorite quote.
It is my favorite quote. There's a million things I haven't done. Just you wait. We kind of talked when I approached you about being on the podcast. I asked you, are there some things you want to talk about or things you want to address to a wider audience? And assuming that this is going to be promoted on your page, like your personal page, and the people that follow you might see this. One of the things you said you wanted to talk about was boys that don't cry, or like the non-crying male. Talk a little bit about that, and yeah.
So I find it really interesting about like how boys don't cry, or how guys kind of just bury their emotions, like, period. And when I took a class this past semester on gender and sexuality, I realized that toxic masculinity had a huge deal in that, but also at the same time, there were people like Frank Ocean who were like trying to set the record straight that, like, yeah, boys don't cry, but we can still kind of break that stigma and that narrative by literally naming, like, he named his magazine Boys Don't Cry or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, like, it's just a full publication of, like, guys, like, doing fashion and talking about, like, their mental health and all sorts of other things.
Yeah. I feel like that's a little bit of generalization, however, because I do know men that I have seen cry. I've not seen that entirely. Like, one of my friends, like, I've seen cry a trillion times. Got married, cried at his wedding, cried when my mom passed away, cried, like, all these different things. I found, and you know this, that I'm someone that doesn't cry. One of the things that I was talking to my therapist, and I brought that up. Like, I feel like I have trouble emoting with tears and crying. Like, my little brother, my older brother, like, I have seen men that do that, and I don't. It's very hard for me. It takes a lot to get to that place. And we kind of were discovering, like, that may not be something that I ever do, but I'm still acknowledging the emotions that come behind that. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is not everyone shows emotions in different ways, but being able to acknowledge the emotions that fuel the physicality behind that. So if you can find those emotions and identify them and express them in some way, how do you express them? So for me, anger, like legitimate anger against people, like that I know, I don't express that. I express anger in talking about some random, like, something that doesn't matter, but I get really angry and really expressive about, you know, Little Mermaid being casted or like something like that. Like, that's off the top of my head. I don't care about that. But, like, I would express, like, anger or something, like, in that way. And be like, this is crazy. Oh, my God. Yeah. And so that when it's time for something, like, if, let's say, you and I get into a fight or an argument or a disagreement, that's where I can be like, okay, cool. I hear that. I don't like that. I'm very upset with that. Let me step back and kind of, like, figure out how to go from here, instead of blowing up at you or instead of blowing up at another person. I use it almost as getting angry at little things that don't necessarily, quote unquote, matter, is like relieving the pressure so that it doesn't build up until one day I'm like, motherfucker, I'm the Hulk, or something like that. So I think that is something that definitely needs to continue to be expressed and to see both sides. And I think it does need to be, men need to be commended for the things that they have done. Like, you are going out of your way. Some of us, I don't know, stop me if I'm just rambling at this point. But
no, I don't think you're rambling at this point.
Okay.
I think you're bringing up some very valid points. Mm-hmm. I think it was just necessarily, like, the men that I hung around, or the boys that I hung around as a child. Mm-hmm. The guy that was, like, sexually assaulted with me, he was 8 years old, and his younger sister was my age, but he had a lot of pent-up anger, because in his family, their whole thing was, even his mom, like, would tell him, like, you know, we don't let the men cry, we don't let you see your emotion.
That's what's up.
Yeah, and certain things like that. It was something that was meant for women, I guess. And I found that really interesting. But something that I also found really interesting was their stigma of mental health within, like, their household, because they were very religious.
Yeah.
And they found it to be a thing where it was like, okay, like, if you aren't getting help from God first, then, like,
you out of luck.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, what's good with that, fam?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so what do you think about the stigma of mental health within minority communities, since it is Minority Mental Health Month? And how that looks and leads into like places of like cultural stance, like churches and other things like that.
From the very little bit I've touched and crossed spaces with, one of the things we've talked about, and you've kind of asked me before, was the like church and therapy. And what you just said, like, if you're not getting mental help from God, you out of luck. So I entirely disagree with that. Like, you can go and get your religious, spiritual healing, like, needs met, like, mental needs. Like, you can get all of that. But I think there's a responsibility for you to do all that you can. So if you're doing something, some things take time. Why don't you add on supplements to that? Therapy is a great way to really get down to your emotions, because as much as you can sit there and read the Bible, you have to be honest with yourself about what's going on in your head and what's going on in your emotions and things like that. It's easy to open up the Bible and read it and be like, that's what God said, cool. And, not really confront yourself. You should, that's what you should be doing, but, you don't always do that, So I think having a therapist, having a licensed therapist, is someone that can sit down and really ask you questions with thought-provoking questions that can lead you down a path of consciousness that leads you to healing mentally and so forth. So I think it's necessary. I think it should be done. You can have both of those things. It's not one or the other. Take all that you can to build who you are as a human being, to be that best version of who you are. And that's really how I look at that. Within the minority communities, I don't understand why we don't feel the need to find mental health. I don't think we've really, or at least I've not done the research, or I've found the knowledge as to why, what some of, I guess, the big underlying issue is why we don't seek the help that is. You've done, I feel like you've done more research. You live in that community of mental health. What are the things that seem to be why we don't do that?
So for minority communities as a whole, there's some things that are very pertinent, that kind of stand out with like all minorities, like whether you're Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Black, or like even like Native American. Some of that goes back to religion, like we just talked about, and that whole thing about like if you're not going to see God first, then you're not really entitled to go get help from anywhere else. Another one is just a very, very bad trust in the health system as a whole, and anything that falls underneath that, especially like with the word mental health, it's literally has the word health in it. So why take it seriously if it's something that just sounds like it's in your head anyways? And then that's another misconception, the third misconception that's kind of like sprung across all minority health communities, is that it's just in your head. So how can you help something that's just in your head and it's not a physical problem or ailment? And I think we're starting to learn more that, like, for example, through, like, communities, like Black communities, where there are very poor kids at risk, in, like, Chicago or Compton or even, like, DC or like, even here in, like, Atlanta, like, the SWATs or whatever. There's a lot of violence going on in these communities that are leading them to basically have PTSD symptoms. But nobody really wants to talk about that. And we're not using really the right words of like trauma and depression, anxiety, because we're scared to. But slowly but surely we're using those terms because we have nothing else to be able to describe it. You know what I mean? Because
we've ran into everything else but the actual cause of the issue.
Exactly. So I've been really impressed to see that in some minority communities, like they're using yoga on children and stuff of that nature. They're trying to get more therapists in the schools, and trying to like get kids that are at risk to be able to go see therapists and stuff of that nature. But I don't know, it's a lot that falls into each different category of minorities, different ranges of why they don't want to deal with mental health. And some of it honestly just comes back down to like generational ideals. I know with a lot of kids coming up in this like latter generation, like millennials and like, I don't know what's the next one is.
Generation X. I don't know. They're younger than us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all that matters.
Exactly.
Generation Z, I think.
Okay.
Generation Z.
They basically have a more freedom. Like we saw, like, you know, in Colorado, apparently, like you can be a 12-year-old and go get
and go get mental
health without parental consent or whatever. But and so they're willing to take charge and do stuff like that, or they're willing to take charge and like come out and reach out to people like us on MHA, where they like see that like, hey, they have a Black girl who's willing to answer asks and stuff like that. So I can go reach out to help to her. But still, it's hard when you have these generational adages, I guess.
Stigmas?
Yeah, stigmas.
Like that live on.
Exactly. Within your parents and your grandparents. And it becomes really awkward to say, hey, I need help. But I would be like the first. It's like kind of like being the first person to go to college, essentially. Yeah. Like, you're the first person to really go get help. You're the first person to really go talk about that generational trauma. You're the first person in the family that's actually going and getting help for something that your family's been needing help for a very long time. But nobody's wanted to go and set foot out and actually go talk about those issues in public. Or not necessarily public, but in a private setting that's safe.
What do you think that is... How do you think that changes the family dynamic? How has that changed your family dynamic? Let's talk you. Like, has that been a thing? Like, not seeking mental help, and then you having gone through what you've gone through, and has that created something within your family?
So I would say I was kind of like the leader in my family for mental health and advocacy. And my mom was a person who basically realized that it was okay to... No, it wasn't even that. It was my grandfather who literally looked at my mom and told her, like, he knew something was wrong with me after my traumatic event had happened. He didn't know what, but he knew damn well something had happened to me. And he wanted to make sure that I got the help I needed. And he looked at my mom dead set in the eyes, and she still recalls to this day about how, like, he said, you need to go get her help, regardless of what that help may need to be. And I think that was the first time in a long time that my mom or anybody had heard in that family, even like my grandfather, who was like the man of the household for like a very long time before he passed away, basically be like, whoa, he's willing to accept that she needs mental health help. It's okay if she goes and gets that for her daughter. It's okay if I go get that for my son. Or whoever it may be in the family. So I feel like that opened up a lot of doors when that happened to me. My traumatic event happened to me. And then like it was like realizing that, okay, like we need to go get help for her. And so the family kind of like surrounded me through that. And I was really happy for that. But at the same time, there's still stigma within my family. Like, we still have some of that.
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? I think you listed 3 things you want to talk about. We talked about boys not crying. We touched on church and religion, and you wanted to ask me something. I thought, you wanted to ask me a question? Was it the religion and? Okay, I feel like there's one more thing.
Oh, I mean, if you feel like talking about it, I don't want to like press you or anything because it's your podcast and I don't want to get in trouble here, guys. But what about you necessarily? I know you kind of like talked to me about how, and you kind of like had a revelation, like this Negro hopped out of bed. Of my bed in the middle of the day because he had a revelation about basically like his depression as a teenager, and that he yeah do you want to elaborate on like your revelation you had on my bed?
So I was laying on her bed and we were talking about just like growing up and stuff, and I kind of said like I had depression as a teenager, but I like fought my way out of it. Like I never like went to anybody. I maybe talked about it to some friends. I definitely talked about it with my mom a little bit. Everyone kind of gave like their piece of whatever. And I just had the wherewithal in myself to like, I need to do something. How do I get out of this funk? How do I find this healing that I need? Because I know I'm not in a good place. And I never, to this day, I don't like to say, I had depression when I was in high school, because I was never clinically proven to have depression. Mm-hmm. And I know people that have been clinically like diagnosed with depression. So I never like to claim that. So what was the revelation? I think it was just that, I actually did have depression. Yeah. I just didn't like.
You didn't feel valid enough to go.
I didn't feel valid enough to
go seek help.
What?
Sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel like I don't even think it was that. It wasn't like, I knew it was. I knew I was depressed. I didn't know if it was clinical depression. I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what to do. So I just started reading and looking for help in all the ways that I could. That was never something that I thought of or was brought to my attention. And I think that in that case, it was just an ignorance of, these are the tools that you can use to get help from. So I think it's more so within my case, it was an ignorance than an absolute deterring away from trying to get help, like, or a deterrence of, you have this option available to you, don't take it. It was more so, I didn't even know that was something that I could have done. Yeah. So that's kind of like that's how I view that. Maybe from the outside, it looks like I was maybe arrogant to not go seek help, but I think it was more so an ignorance than it was arrogance to actually seek help. Jumping around now because we have time. What has it been like post-graduation? What has life been like for you post-graduation?
So post-graduation life has basically been like just looking for a job, found one, which is really cool. And now I'm just kind of, focusing on my life. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Is that it? You're just focusing?
No. Okay. Sorry. No. Let me rephrase that.
I might not edit this out. She was messing with the water bottle. And I was like, stop it. There's sound. Stop. And now I'm drinking it. Continue.
Drinking my water. Jeez. I feel as though now I can focus on other things in my life, like being an adult, learning how to budget again, planning for things like Music Midtown, how to pay for that, hopefully like becoming more involved in my alumni chapter, becoming more involved in some other things as well in Atlanta. Yeah.
How's your time here in Atlanta been? I know it's been mostly college. It's been all college, correct?
Yes.
How has Atlanta influenced you in any way? Like, has Atlanta been, I don't know, like people talk about moving to places and how it's helped and it's changed, it's opened doors. Outside of college, how has Atlanta been to you?
Atlanta has opened me to becoming a more adventurous person. It's become like the world is my playground here. Mm-hmm. And ever since I met you, Jeremiah, it feels as though my world has like opened even more.
A whole new world.
Oh my gosh. Please save me.
Oh my god.
Save me. He's been doing this for like weeks now and still won't go see Aladdin with me.
Oh my god.
Yes.
I was trying to that one night and they were not playing it. Or the movie theater closed, so.
Anywho, I've been able to see a whole new world. I love going to concerts, and so like I was like telling somebody in Brunswick this like past like 2 weekends ago or so that like I love Atlanta because of the concert scene and the music scene and just being able to go freely and do whatever I want. And so I've been able to explore many a concert venue alone, and it's been awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
If there was anything you could tell your audience, I know you've really done that. That's what this conversation is, what you want other people to hear, but in the form of conversation. But if you had to sit down and tell an audience of people something, what would that be?
Mental health is really expensive. Like, stupid expensive. Healthcare is stupid expensive. Please, for the life of you, go register to vote, so we can be able to get officials in these positions who actually care about mental health and healthcare, and will actually put in processes and other institutions in place so we don't have people coming in our inbox asking, how do I, are there resources so I can make it with only a few days left of meds, or, I can't pay for my meds this month. How am I supposed to get by? What do I do to get by and cope until my next appointment and stuff of that nature?
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me? You've listened to several episodes of the podcast. Any questions you would love to hear me answer? Any questions that you think people should know about me?
What is your favorite TV character that you relate to? You know who you want to say. It's the same question I asked you on my Bumble.
Oh, I was actually going to say a different character.
Oh.
Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh my god.
Because it's a great phenomenal show. The answer that Leah was looking for, and that I did tell her I relate to this character a lot, is Dennis from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because of his ability to be normal, and he is not. Not to say that I am like fucked up and weird like Dennis, but I know I'm like awkward sometimes. I have a different level of awkwardness than you do. Like, we're both awkward individuals, but we have very different levels of it. The writing for that character is really, really funny to me, and I get a lot of why they have the character do the things that he does. I won't say that entirely because he's basically a sociopath, and which I am not. That's how I would describe kind of the relation between me and that character. So, yeah. Leah Garrett. Mm-hmm. Guess what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time for you to answer the question from our previous guest on the show.
Cool beans.
Do you want to know who this previous guest is?
Yes.
You can't find out unless you listen to the last episode.
Oh my god, you're gonna shame me because I don't listen to your podcast anymore?
I shame every guest. I'm like, you want to know who it is? No, you gotta go back and listen to the last episode. I'll tell you after we record, but as we're recording, I'm not gonna tell you. So for those of you who also want to know, you should find out. Listen to that last episode because it's a really good episode. I'm really proud of being able to have our last guest on and talk about some stuff that was pretty intense. So, yeah. Our question from our previous guest for you today is, what were the 3 most formative songs, bands, musicians in your teen years?
So, first and foremost, I would have to say Kid Cudi, because Man on the Moon Volume 2, The Legend of Mr. Rager, I remember exactly when that album came out. I stayed up like the night before and like illegally downloaded it as soon as the torrent hit. Shut up. Child of the internet. Leave me alone.
We're all pirates.
And I just remember going to school the next day with my headphones in, and I was like completely in a different world. And I remember, I think that's how I connected with my first ever boyfriend and my first true love.
Mm-hmm.
Zach. Black Zach.
Black Zach?
Yeah.
Was he the only Black Zach in the school?
No.
Why does they call him Black Zach?
Oh, because we had to differentiate between him and the white Zach.
That's funny. All right, so Kid Cudi is your first.
Kanye West is the next one because My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy came out in 2010. So when I was in high school, and that, again, I remember when that album dropped and it became like rated as by like Spin as like the #1 album or whatever for like that year. And then I remember when the film came out because like I talked to you about it, like I relate to it a lot, and it's just something that.
Why do you relate to it?
Huh?
Tell people why you relate to it.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna sound so stupid, but like I relate to like the bird in the film. I feel as though I was really lost and I like landed in like high school and I wasn't really sure where I was supposed to be in this world, but I wanted somebody to come and save me, and I kind of like was a representation of that to myself. I kind of was like Kanye, running and like trying to go and save myself in the middle, but at the same time like I kind of always imagined that some guy would come and save me, and stuff of that nature, as like a little injured bird. And then I don't know, I just really relate to that bird. I really do. Yeah. That awkwardness and her having to relearn like the human world and what it means and stuff of that nature.
Do you feel like that, having to relearn a lot of, not necessarily you relearning, but like learning interactions and things like that because of the trauma, do you feel like that is why you have such a relation to that?
You just hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
And then your last person, do you have a third?
I want to say Janelle Monae, but like I'm not sure if she had me. Yes, she did. Okay, cool. Janelle Monae.
Okay.
Janelle Monae.
Why is that?
I remember when she came out with like the whole like Many Moons thing, like the Metropolis, like the Cindy Mayweather story, and okay, you
I don't follow her at all.
Okay, well,
I think she's great. I just don't.
Gotta get you to read my paper then.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in that.
But I remember when it came out, and I remember her talking in Many Moons about like being like this little black girl from like Kansas, and like not necessarily having people always have her back because she was just this little black girl with like from a 2-parent household that was like stable, but at the same time like they were fighting to be stable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
A stable household. So I just really related to it coming from like a single parent household that was like really well off and not like the traditional single parent household, but at the same time knowing that my mom worked really hard to get to where she was and to have that lifestyle for me and her.
Yeah, nice. What would you ask our next guest?
I would like to ask the next guest, what TV character do they most relate to and why?
Gotcha. Can I ask you that right now?
Yes.
Because I don't think I ever asked you that when we were on Bumble.
Yes, you did.
Did I? Well, I don't remember. I'm a bad boyfriend.
Actually, no, you didn't.
See, I didn't think so. Hey, I remember things. What TV character do you relate to
Who
and
do you
why?
think?
No, I asked you a question. We're not playing Who Do You Think? We're on my podcast. We're on my podcast. I asked the question. You can't.
Jeremiah Xavier Moses Stephenson's podcast.
Oh my god. Can answer you?
Okay, so I relate to Alana from Broad City. Yeah, because she is just free. She literally hate to spoil and like spoil the season for y'all if you haven't watched it, but you should have already. But homegirl goes off to become a counselor, a mental health counselor.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. And that was actually like my backup career.
Nice. Really?
Yes.
Is it something you would still ever consider stepping towards?
Possibly. Maybe. Not really sure.
Is there anything you want to say before I wrap up?
Everybody should take care of their mental health, and everybody should do something daily for their mental health, regardless of that being just something simple, like taking a shower, or eating something, or going and like tidying up your room, as Jeremiah would say, so you can have a nice, clean living space.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the episode, Miss Garrett. Thank you for joining us today on Perspectives with Jeremiah Stephenson.
Thank you.
I look forward to spending more time with you and hanging out with you because I really like you.
I really like you too.
You're my girlfriend. And yeah, I want to do what I can to be cool for you. So, you can follow me, Jeremiah, on Instagram at ParkourGeek, ParkourG33K. You can also follow me on YouTube at A Token's Take, ATOKEN''S''TAKE. I should be having some more stuff on my YouTube channel soon. We are in the process of figuring that out. You can also find me on Facebook at Jeremiah Stephenson. Not going to add you because I don't fucking know you. Leah, what would you like to close out and plug?
So I would like to plug my own Instagram. That's lit. I'm Marvelous. Marvel, like literally MARVEL. Leah, EAHOUS at the end. It's a joke. It's a pun. It took me a very long time to come up and create with, so please go look at it. And I have my own logo too, and that took a long time to get to. So go follow your girl. Also, you should go follow Mental Health Advice at mentalhealthadvice.org. And we also have a Tumblr, which is mental-health-advice.tumblr.com, which you can also follow us at as well. And send us any ask or if you would like to become a part and volunteer, whether that's for social or to become an admin, just to answer anybody asks that come through in our inbox. Because we need more help, literally, ASAP. If you're interested, you can definitely reach out to me through my DMs, or you can go and follow us on Instagram or Tumblr to find out more about applying through that.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Leah, thank you again. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please take care of yourselves. As always, be love, be life, be.